Welcome back to AI Unraveled, your daily strategic briefing on the business impact of artificial intelligence. It is Saturday, January 17th, 2026. OpenAI has said no to Apple. In a move that defines the ambition of Sam Altman, the lab turned down the chance to be the iPhone's default brain, so it could build its own hardware instead. That decision has handed Google the keys to the Apple ecosystem. But that's not the only retreat today. Meta is officially killing the metaverse for work, shutting down Horizon workrooms and ending enterprise headset sales. The dream of VR meetings is dead. The era of AI glasses has begun. Also today, Cursor's AI agents write 3 million lines of code in a week. Donald Trump sends big tech a $15 billion electric bill, and Sam Altman invests OpenAI's money into Sam Altman's brain chip startup. But before we dive into the rundown, are you drowning in dense legal text? Gemini is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page healthcare or energy mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Whether you are navigating Bill C-27 Canada or the CMS 0057F Interoperability Rule USA, our AI agents decode the liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamind.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Now let's unravel the news.
It is Friday, January 17th, 2026. And the narrative that we've all been following, the one where Apple and OpenAI become this inevitable power couple of the AI decade, well, that is officially dead.
It's not just dead, it's been turned completely on its head. In the last, 24 hours, we learned that OpenAI didn't just get passed over, they actually walked away from the deal.
They walked away from the deal of the century.
Yeah.
And while that was happening, Google just quietly checkmated them on infrastructure.
Welcome to AI Unraveled, your daily deep dive into the structural shifts of the industry.
It really is a checkmate. And,
Yeah.
it's not just about infrastructure. It points this complete divergence in strategy we're seeing. The whole industry is splitting into these two very different camps.
What are the camps?
Well, on one side, you've got the vertical integrators. Think Google, they own the silicon, they own the cloud, the data, the model, the whole stack.
Right.
And on the other, you have what I'm starting to call the sovereign model labs, like OpenAI. They're trying desperately to break out of just being a piece of software. And that is exactly where we need to start today. Because if you look at the entire news stack, everything from the hardware wars in Taiwan to Meta killing the B2B metaverse, it all connects back to this one central tension.
Who owns the user?
Who actually owns the user? It's the trillion-dollar question.
And the answer is looking a whole lot more complicated this morning than it did yesterday.
So let's get right into it. The headline that really woke everyone up, we found out that OpenAI formally rejected a deal to be Apple's main AI provider last fall.
Yeah.
On the surface, this just looks insane. We're talking about instant default distribution to 2 billion active devices. Why on earth would you walk away from that?
That's the question everyone's asking. Is it hubris? Or did they see something we didn't?
Was there a trap in the API terms that the rest of the market just completely missed?
I don't think it was a trap so much as it was a ceiling, a golden cage. If OpenAI accepts that deal, they become a utility. They become the Intel Inside for the iPhone. They do all the heavy lifting, all the computation. They burn through the inference credits. But who gets the credit?
Apple. And Apple owns the customer relationship.
Apple owns the customer. And OpenAI has made it, very clear with their behavior recently that they have hardware ambitions of their own. They don't want to just power the next platform.
They want to be the next platform.
Exactly. So they're refusing to be the back end for Siri so they can, maybe one day compete directly with the iPhone itself.
So they bet on themselves. But looking at the immediate fallout this morning, that is a gamble with a massive, massive upfront cost. Because Apple didn't just sit around and wait.
No, they didn't. They just turned around and expanded their existing partnership with Google.
And that's the real consequence here. Gemini is now the default layer for Siri. If you pick up your new iPhone today and ask it a complex question, you are hitting Google's servers.
Not OpenAI's.
Not OpenAI's. ChatGPT has been. It's been relegated to this optional backup, a setting you have to actively dig for in the menus.
And we know how this works in consumer tech. Defaults are destiny. 99% of users will never change that setting.
The numbers are already bearing that out.
Right.
There was a leak suggesting this current secondary arrangement has been a huge disappointment for OpenAI in terms of traffic.
They expected a flood, even as an option.
Flood. But the friction is just too high, so Google won the slot.
But here's the thing, and this is what I think the market is really missing today. Google didn't just win the iPhone slot because they were the only one left to ask.
Right. It wasn't a win by default.
No. There's a much deeper story here. I mean, look, Alphabet recently overtook Apple in valuation, and everyone focused on the stock price. But the real story is the structural advantage Google has quietly been building under the hood.
The machine under the machine.
Exactly. They aren't just winning on the contract, they're winning on the unit economics. This goes back to that vertical integration.
Yeah, you're talking about the vertical stack. Because while OpenAI is out there paying Microsoft, billions for compute on Azure, Google has been reorganizing everything. They merged DeepMind, Google Research.
All into a single Gemini engineering organization.
Right.
But it's more than just the org chart. It's the silicon. To really understand this, we have to talk about the Ironwood TPU.
I was reading the white paper on Ironwood this morning. I mean, the specs are frankly terrifying if you're a competitor. It's a 3-nanometer process, which is already state-of-the-art, but the key seems to be the memory architecture.
That's the critical piece. That is the whole game right now. The big bottleneck in AI isn't just raw compute anymore. It's what they call the memory wall.
So just moving data from the memory to the chip fast enough to keep the processors busy.
Right. You can have the fastest engine in the world, but if the fuel line is too small, you're not going anywhere. Ironwood gets around this by integrating high bandwidth memory directly onto the chip package right next to the compute cores. It's a custom solution that generic accelerators just haven't caught up to yet.
So let's compare that for people listening. How does that stack up against, say, the standard NVIDIA H100s or the new Blackwell clusters that, basically everyone else is using? Microsoft, OpenAI, Meta.
Okay, here's the analogy I've been using. Think of an NVIDIA chip as a Ferrari. It's an incredible, high-performance, general-purpose machine. It can run anything on any road really, really fast.
Sure.
But Google didn't build a Ferrari. They built a Formula One car. And it's specifically designed for one track.
And they own the track.
Ironwood allows for significantly higher throughput per pod. Okay, but here's the kicker. It reduces the energy cost per token generated by roughly 40% compared to a generic cluster.
40%. And that 40% efficiency gain is the difference between bleeding money on every free user and actually breaking even, or even making a profit.
Precisely. When you are serving billions of queries a day through Siri and Android and Google Search, that margin isn't just part of the business, it is the entire business.
So this full stack, the custom silicon with Ironwood, plus their own cloud infrastructure, plus their unparalleled data streams from Search, YouTube, Android, it couples everything. Training scale, inference latency, and cost. It's a closed loop that a simple partnership just can't replicate.
Exactly. Apple is essentially renting intelligence. OpenAI is leasing compute from Microsoft, but Google owns the mine, the factory, and the store.
It's the classic bundling strategy from the old Microsoft days, but applied to intelligence itself. And now that they're rolling Gemini into the Google One subscription, AI is shifting from being a destination, a tool you visit like ChatGPT,
to just an invisible infrastructure layer. It's in your photos, it's in your docs, it's in your maps.
Yeah, it was there.
It's becoming boring, invisible, and ubiquitous. And that is a much, much harder moat to cross than just having a slightly wittier chatbot.
Speaking of moats that have, completely dried up, let's pivot to Meta. Because while Google is digging in for the long haul, Mark Zuckerberg is officially sounding the retreat on one of his biggest bets. The news just dropped. Meta is shutting down Horizon workrooms.
The end of the legless boardroom meetings, finally.
It is a hard stop. The standalone app dies on February 16th.
Yep.
And all sales of Quest headsets and services to businesses stop on February 20th.
Wow.
This isn't a soft pivot. It's pulling the plug. Back in 2021, the narrative was that we would all be working in VR, that this was the future of the office. Why did B2B VR fail so hard?
I think it failed because it completely ignored the friction coefficient. It's simple human factors. The market spoke loud and clear.
And what did it say?
It said that executives, developers, project managers, they do not want to strap a 1-pound piece of plastic to their face to look at a virtual spreadsheet.
The immersion didn't add value.
It didn't add value. It added weight. It added nausea. It added setup time. The cost benefit just wasn't there.
But looking at Meta's overall strategies doesn't feel like a surrender. It feels more like a strategic reallocation of resources.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pivot to form factor. Zuckerberg is fundamentally shifting from immersion to intelligence. The focus now is entirely on mobile phones and, crucially, the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses.
Which, to be fair, were kind of a sleeper hit.
They were a huge validation of a completely different hypothesis, and that hypothesis is that people want AI to overlay their reality, not replace it entirely.
They want an assistant.
They want an assistant whispering in their ear or projecting a little notification on a lens. They want something lightweight, low friction. So for any investors or executives listening, this signals the definitive end of the metaverse for business hype cycle that started back in 2021.
All that capital is going somewhere else.
All that capital that was earmarked for VR enterprise sales is now flowing directly into AI creator tools and mobile-first AI experiences.
So the dream of the virtual office is dead. But the dream of the AI-augmented employee, that's just getting started. But here's the rub, and it connects everything together. All of these AI assistants, whether they're in your glasses or your iPhone, they all require a staggering amount of electricity.
Yeah, and we're not talking about a little bit of power.
No, we are talking about a full-blown crisis. Utility costs across the U.S. rose, what was the figure, 9.6% in 2025 alone.
An incredible jump, and economists have traced that spike almost entirely back to data center demand. The grid is buckling under the strain.
Which brings us to this really fascinating proposal from the Trump administration. And I have to say, for a party that usually talks about deregulation, this is a massive, massive government intervention into the energy market.
It's a huge intervention. They're asking big tech to pay $15 billion to directly finance the construction of new power plants.
How does that even work? Is it a tax?
It's effectively a tax on compute, but it's structured as a long-term investment. The proposal uses the PJM interconnection, which is the largest grid operator in the U.S., covering the East Coast and Midwest, to run an emergency electricity auction.
Okay, so for those of us who don't follow energy markets, how does an auction like this actually get a power plant built?
Well, normally a utility company projects future demand, gets a loan, builds a plant, and then charges ratepayers, regular people and businesses, over 30 years to pay it off. That's way too slow for AI.
The demand is happening now.
The demand is happening now. So in this auction, the data centers themselves, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, would bid for 15-year capacity contracts up front. They are guaranteeing the revenue stream for a new power plant before a single shovel goes in the ground. That guarantee is what makes the bank loan for construction possible.
So you're shifting the capital expenditure risk from the grandmother paying her monthly electric bill to the trillion-dollar tech company that's actually causing the demand spike.
Correct. It is a fundamental admission that AI is now a heavy industry. It's not just in the cloud anymore. It's a furnace and a factory.
You can't just plug into the wall anymore.
Nope. If you want the juice, you have to build the generator. And think about the implications of that. It changes the unit economics for startups versus the incumbents. If you're a startup, you can't guarantee a 15-year power contract.
You don't know if you'll exist in 15 years.
Right. So this policy, intentionally or not, entrenches the hyperscalers even further.
And if that energy news wasn't enough to convince you that AI is becoming a physical geopolitical industry, well, the deal with Taiwan just seals it.
Yeah, this is huge.
The U.S. and Taiwan just signed a trade agreement that brings $250 billion in chip and tech investments to American soil.
That number is just staggering, $250 billion. That's larger than the GDP of many, many countries.
And it's not just a handshake and a photo op. The structure of the deal is fascinating. It's a direct quid pro quo.
So Taiwan backs its companies, like TSMC, with huge lines of credit. And in return, the U.S. slashes tariffs.
It's a quid pro quo for sovereign security. I mean, the details are that the U.S. cuts reciprocal tariffs from 20% down to 15% and removes them entirely on critical goods like generic pharmaceuticals and aircraft components.
In exchange, TSMC and its entire supply chain ecosystem move physical assets to Arizona. They build the fabs here.
And we are already seeing the excavators moving. There are reports that TSMC bought hundreds of additional acres right next to their existing Arizona fab property. They're preparing for a massive expansion.
And crucially, the deal makes the import of all that hyper-specialized fabrication equipment tariff-free during the construction period.
So what does that tell you?
It tells us that the U.S. government now views AI supremacy as a matter of physical territory. They want the fabs here. They want the power plants here. We are rapidly moving from the era of move fast and break things to the era of move fast and pour concrete.
It's a really heavy pivot. But while the hardware side of the industry is getting heavier, more expensive, more physical, The software side is doing something. I mean, frankly, terrifyingly efficient. We have to talk about Cursor.
This is the story that I think should have every single software engineering manager in the world sweating today. Cursor, which is the AI native code editor, they released a deep dive into some of their internal agentic coding experiments.
And the headline numbers are they're absurd. They ran hundreds of autonomous AI agents that built a 3 million line web browser in under a week.
Let's just pause on that for a second. Let's really let that sink in. 3 million lines of code. And this wasn't some, Hello World app. This browser they built included a working Windows 7 emulator and a functional Excel clone inside of it.
How is that even possible? I mean, we've all seen AI write a function or a small script, but maintaining context and coherence over 3 million lines, that complexity usually breaks even the best LLMs.
Well, they used a methodology that they're kind of cheekily calling the Ralph Wiggum technique.
Please tell me that's a Simpsons reference.
It is, from the I'm a Unitard line. It implies extreme specialization. They realize that a single, monolithic, smart agent just gets overwhelmed by the context. It loses the plot.
So they broke the problem down.
They broke the swarm into specialized roles. You had planner agents that just architected the file structure and the overall design. You had worker agents who did nothing but write the specific, clean syntax for individual files. And then, and this is key, you had judge agents.
What do?
Their only job was to review the code the workers produced, check it for errors, and reject it if it didn't meet the standards.
So they synthetically replicated a human software development team, the architects, the senior devs, the QA engineers.
Exactly, a coding swarm. And another really interesting detail came out of this. The choice of model mattered a lot. They ran this on GPT 5.2.
Yeah.
They noted that when they tried the same experiment with Claude Opus 4.5, the Claude agents tended to, quote, take shortcuts or begin to hallucinate fixes over these very long autonomous runs.
So GPT 5.2 showed more, what did you call it, adherence?
They called it grit, a higher adherence to the initial prompt over days and days of autonomous running. It was just more reliable for these long-haul tasks.
This feels like a genuine watershed moment. I mean, if you're a company and you can spin up a swarm of agents to build a custom browser in a week, what is the value of a SaaS subscription anymore?
That is the economic earthquake that is waiting to happen. It's the big one. Right now, companies pay Salesforce or Adobe or whoever these huge monthly fees because building a competitor is just too damn hard.
It takes hundreds of engineers years of work.
But what happens when the cost of generating that complex software drops to near zero? What happens when I can just say, build me a custom CRM specifically for my dental practice and integrate it with my scheduling software, and a swarm delivers it on Monday for $50 in compute?
The entire SaaS business model just collapses.
It completely inverts. We move from software as a service to something more like software as a generation.
Disposable, custom software built on demand.
Exactly. And that radically devalues the act of writing the code itself. The value shifts entirely to the person who can clearly define the problem and architect the solution. It's the prompt engineer on steroids.
That brings us to the people who are actually pulling the strings behind all this. We talk about the tech, but the, let's call it the circular economy of Silicon Valley is getting a lot of attention today, specifically because of OpenAI's latest big investment.
Yes, the Merge Labs deal, a $250 million seed round, which is already insane, at an $850 million valuation. And Merge Labs is working on brain-computer interfaces, BCI.
But not the Elon Musk kind, where they drill a hole in your skull.
Right. This is the key difference. It's non-invasive. They use a combination of ultrasound and engineered proteins to read neural signals without requiring any surgery. It's being framed as the humane approach to BCI.
Okay, but the controversy isn't really about the tech. It's about the cap table, isn't it?
It's all about the cap table. Merge Labs is co-founded by Sam Altman,
Who's also, of course, the CEO of OpenAI.
the very same OpenAI that just led this massive investment round into his company.
So just to be crystal clear, Sam Altman is effectively investing OpenAI's corporate treasury into a company that he personally owns a massive chunk of.
That's the circular economy criticism in a nutshell. Now, strategically, you can argue it makes sense for OpenAI. If AI is the new operating system, BCI is the new keyboard and mouse.
OpenAI wants to own the interface layer that replaces our current ones.
Of course they do, but ethically and just optically. It looks like a merry-go-round of value creation where the same 3 or 4 people are sitting on all the horses and capturing all the upside.
It also puts OpenAI in a direct collision course with Neuralink. So now Sam Altman is fighting Elon Musk on AI models and on brain interfaces.
It's a multi-front war. And the talent, the actual people building this stuff, are getting caught in the crossfire. Just look at what happened with thinking machines yesterday.
That's Mira Murati's new startup.
It was a chaotic 24 hours for them. Her co-founder, a guy named Barrett Soff, left the company amid some pretty serious allegations of sharing proprietary information.
And where did he go?
What do you think?
Right back to OpenAI.
I'm kidding.
Within hours.
Yeah.
He and a few other key staffers just boomeranged right back to the mothership.
Yeah.
And then Mira, not missing a beat, immediately turned around and hired Sarmith Chintala as her new CTO.
Samfith Chintala, the creator of PyTorch.
The creator of PyTorch, one of the foundational libraries of the entire AI ecosystem. It's a massive, massive hire.
Wow.
But it just goes to show how incestuous and absolutely brutal this talent war has become. There are, maybe 500 people on the planet who can really move the needle on these frontier models?
And they're all just bouncing between the same few companies?
Bouncing between companies, carrying IP, trade secrets, and personal influence in their backpacks. The whole ecosystem is incredibly unstable.
It feels less like a corporate job market and more like, I don't know, Game of Thrones.
It's the red wedding of neural networks, as you called it before we started. All right, let's hit the lightning round. I want to burn through 5 other stories loose the wire today because the volume is just relentless. First up, ByteDance.
This one is significant. They released a new protein structure model called SeedFold, and the early data shows it actually outperforms Google's own AlphaFold 3.
Which really challenges that narrative that U.S. sanctions are completely killing Chinese AI innovation.
It does. It proves that algorithmic innovation can, in some cases, outpace hardware constraints. Basic science is still moving very, very fast in Beijing.
Okay, next. xAI versus Anthropic. Elon Musk had some surprisingly humble words today.
He did. He straight up admitted that Grok 4.20, their latest model, lags behind Claude in coding tasks. He said Anthropic did something special there.
But there was a catch.
Of course. In classic Elon fashion, he followed the compliment with a jab, saying that Anthropic cutting off xAI from early collaboration was bad karma.
He just can't help himself. All right, what about Replit?
They launched a full mobile app creation suite. You can now build an app, test it instantly via QR code on your phone, and then publish it directly to the App Store, all from one window.
Again, reinforcing that cursor theme we talked about. The barrier to software creation is just dissolving.
It's melting away.
Airbnb.
They hired Ahmad Al-Dali as their new CTO. He was the former head of Gen AI at Meta.
That signals a pretty big strategic shift for Airbnb.
It absolutely does. It means your search results are about to get a lot more conversational. Instead of just filtering for dates and number of bedrooms, you'll likely be able to just tell the app, find me a quiet place in Tuscany for a writer's retreat. And it will understand the nuance of quiet and writer.
Interesting. Okay, finally, Higgsfield.
Higgsfield. They raised $130 million at a $1.3 billion valuation. They're claiming to be the fastest scaling AI company in history.
We'll see.
We'll see if the user retention metrics match the fundraising hype, but it proves one thing for sure. The VC spigot is still wide open for the companies that are perceived to be winners.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize all of this. What's the big picture from today? We've got Google cementing a deep structural advantage through vertical integration.
Right.
We have the physical reality of AI forcing governments to literally underwrite power plants and chip fabs.
And at the same time, we have the cost of software production just plummeting towards zero.
The theme here seems to be divergence. The strategies are splitting apart. You could be a vertical giant like Google, or a sovereign model lab like OpenAI, or a specialized swarm tool like Cursor.
But that middle ground, the companies that are just putting a nice wrapper on someone else's API, they're getting crushed.
And the rules of the game are being rewritten physically, not just digitally. We are literally pouring concrete to build the foundations for the next 50 years of the global economy.
That is the big takeaway. The infrastructure phase is here. It's no longer just about algorithms. It's messy, it's expensive, and it's heavy.
So I want to leave you with one final thought, going back to that Cursor story. If a swarm of AI agents can build a browser in a week, think about your own company's backlog. Think about all the internal tools you wish existed for your specific workflow, but they're not big enough for a whole startup to build. Are we entering an era where every executive, every department just builds their own bespoke software suite every Monday morning?
And if we are, then the most important competitive advantage isn't buying the best software anymore. It's knowing exactly what to ask for.
That is definitely something to chew on this weekend. Thanks for diving deep with us on AI Unraveled. We'll catch you tomorrow.
That wraps up today's briefing. The signal for today is independence. OpenAI wants independence from Apple's hardware. Taiwan wants independence through U.S. investment. And Google is proving that its structural independence, owning everything from the chip to the search bar, is the ultimate competitive moat. In 2026, relying on partners is a risk. Owning the stack is the only safety. Before we go, a reminder for the leaders listening. Are you drowning in dense legal text? Jamgamind is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page healthcare or energy mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Whether you are navigating Bill C-27, Canada, or the CMS 0057F interoperability rule, USA, our AI agents decode the liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamind.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Please subscribe and share. Until next time, keep unraveling the future.